good evening everyone. This is Nowrin Koly. I welcome you all to our today's session on creative writing. We have a very special guest with us, Dr. Mohammad Shafiqul Islam, Associate Professor, Department of English, Shahjalal University of Science and Technology. I would request Pranab Kanti, Assistant Professor, and he is the editor of the Phoenix, to introduce our guest speaker to the audience. Listen.
Thanks a lot. I would like to welcome everyone. Good evening. A very good evening to you. Dr. Mohammad Shafiqul Islam is the editor of Reckoning, which is a renowned US literary journal. He is the author of two poetry collection, and his latest book was poetry collection was Inner State, which was published by Daily Star Books. And his another poetry collection is Wings of Winds, and he has also translated some selected stories of our renowned writer Humayun. At the same time, he is working with the translation of the letters of our national poet Kazi Nazrul Islam. Dr. Shafiqul Islam, he is a regular writer. His writings are regularly published in our national newspaper. So I would like to welcome Dr. Shafiqul Islam, sir, to share his talk with our participants. Let us welcome Dr. Shafiqul Islam to our session today. Thank you, sir. And thank you all once again, all for joining with us. Thank you, Shafiq, sir. Let us welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be talking before such august audience. And very good evening to everyone. And thank you, Mr. Pranab. And thank you, the team Phoenix, for organizing such a very wonderful program. I think any program on creative writing is maybe for the first time in Sylhet. I don't know whether something like that happened in Bangladesh. Some universities, some private universities offer some courses in creative writing, but that's from a very limited scope. But there are a good number of writers who are trying to contribute and who are trying to write something wonderful, and they're also publishing worldwide, and particularly the young generations are coming up. So we are hopeful that creative writing will emerge very soon as a very exciting discipline in the country as well. So I'm also associated with a creative writing journal. So from these experiences, even I try to write now and then. So from these experiences, I will try to say something about creative writing. I will just say something about what creative writing is and why creative writing and how to proceed. So creative writing. The first question comes into our mind, what is creative writing? And then the question arises, why creative writing? And finally, how to proceed, what to do for creative writing or what to do with creative writing. So the area of creative writing is not new if we think about it globally. Many universities in the world are offering graduate studies, graduate programs and postgraduate programs on creative writing as well. And lots of MFA, MA programs are being offered in the universities around the world. And even a great number of workshops also take place in different institutions. And why is this? What is the necessity of these kinds of programs? The question arises, is it possible to teach creative writing? Can creative writing be learned? Or can one teach creative writing? Is it possible that someone is being taught creative writing? These are the very important questions that the people in association with creative writing programs ask. So there are mixed reactions from different corners. But yes, I will try to focus on that a little as well. So why creative writing is possible, how is it possible, and why is it not possible? So first of all, let's come to the word create. So it's very important word create in the creative writing. So the word create has come from the Latin origin, and through Latin it came to the Middle English, And earlier in Latin, it was meant actually produced, but later in the Middle English period, the meaning came up to form out of nothing. Create means to form out of nothing. So it has a wider meaning actually. If we think deeply, if we philosophically concentrate on this to form out of nothing, then yeah, it's a bigger area. I'm not going to that. So to create something out of nothing. So you have a blank sheet of paper before you. Your mind is also blank. Then you have to fill it up. First of all, you have to fill your mind with something that maybe from your own experience or maybe from your own imagination. Then you just take it out and fill your paper. So that's why it's said that it's coming out of nothing. Uh, in general, creative writing is, the, the kind of writing which we usually know that literary writing. And literary writing means what? There is fiction, there is poetry, there is non-fiction. It is not like science. It's not like any other business studies. So, and literature as a whole is art, and it is an aesthetic practice. So that's why the question arises: is it possible to teach art? Is it possible to teach uh, aesthetics? So these questions are valid because art is something that is abstract. Aesthetic practice is something that is abstract. But some people believe that some enthusiasts of literature, some experts of literature believe that if the students or if those who are interested about literature have some talent and if they have vocation for writing, then their talent can be shaped, their talent can be reshaped, and their vocation can be steered. There is the hope that creative writing can be taught. Only in this situation creative writing can be taught as a craft. If you think about it, that creative writing is a craft, that yes, it's possible that it can be taught to some extent. That's why I said that creative writing, earlier I mentioned it, that creative writing is possible to be taught. At the same time, it's not possible to be taught. If you consider that creative writing is a craft, then yes, it's possible that you learn something about it. Uh, but it is inarguably true that writing, I'm quoting, writing is mostly a solitary pursuit. If writing is a solitary pursuit, then you can never teach creative writing. So that is something very important about it. It is a solitary pursuit. If someone pursues writing, that and if someone pursues it better, then he or she has to do it in solitude. That is a very important point about creative writing. And if it happens, then ultimately you have to come back to the point that creative writing cannot be taught. And now I'm referring to one of the most important poets, Marianne Moore. In one of her poems, Picking and Choosing, in this particular poem, she said that literature is a phase of life. If one is afraid of it, the situation is irremediable. So when you approach literature, you have to be bold. You have to be courageous, according to Marianne Moore. And if you approach to literature with a positive attitude that you can create something, you can write something. If you are enthusiastic about becoming a writer, if you want to be a writer, then there is a possibility that it can be one. Now the point is how you will go forward, how you will move ahead. I'm coming to that after some time. So writing is actually an extreme act of attention and memory. When you want to be a writer, then you need some special attention to something. You need to focus on your life. You need to focus on the society. You need to focus on the environment around you. And again, you have to look back and you have to look forward. You have to look back to your memory so that you can be nostalgic. So, I mean, lots of things may come up when you approach literature, when you just take recourse to writing. And I'm coming back to creative writing again. So I already mentioned that it is not possible to define creative writing. Many people have attempted to define creative writing, but actually it is really difficult to define creative writing. It is beyond definition. And if you try or if you attempt to define it, then you have to say it is what you think it should be. But roughly speaking, you express your emotions, feelings, thoughts, ideas, and your experiences for creative writing. And it's not any technical writing, as I have already mentioned earlier. Is you give information or you train someone. All right. So when you practice literature, when you write a story or you write a poem, then you are not writing something technical. You are not writing something scientific. So this is artistic. So in that case, you need to have some special preparation, special training, self-training. That is important. Instead of being trained formally, institutionally, you have to train yourself. You have to be a self-trainer. That is an important point about creative writing. So creative writing is, of course, an art, and at the same time, creative writing is a craft. When it is a craft, you can go formally. You can have an institutional training. When it is an art, then you need to have the self-training. And and it is clear to everyone that writing is an aesthetic practice. And you write because you want to liberate yourself. Why do you write? That you ask yourself, why do you want to write? And when you ask yourself why you want to write, then you will come up with your own responses. Everyone needs not to be a writer. Someone who wants to be a writer needs to ask himself, what is the necessity of writing? Then why writing? And and then he will come up or she'll come up with the responses from within, and he will come out with some important things from her own or from his own, and that will be distinctive. So creative writers to a great extent are gifted, and creative writers are powerful enough to move others emotionally, and they can also influence people from different perspectives. So when it is about influencing others, when it is about being gifted as a creative writer, then you have to deeply think about creative writing. I am quoting a very important sentence by Carol Bly. He referred to it in Beyond the Writer's Workshop. He said that it has been argued that half the skills a writer needs to learn are skills of psychological sturdiness, and the half other are skills of literary craft. So this is a very important statement about creative writing. If you are psychologically sound, if you are psychologically powerful, then half the skills you have to be a creative writer, as far as this pronouncement is concerned. But the other half, these are the skills that you have to garner, and these belong to craft. And I'm not going to talk about craft today because this is a very huge area, and maybe another session is necessary for talking about craft. But yes, something may come out from my discussion throughout. But yes, the half of the skills to be a creative writer, half of the skills come from literary craft. But the other half, that is natural. It depends upon how psychologically you are fit, how psychologically, how mentally you are um, enthused, or how much you care to be a writer. That's important. One thing is very important I would like to mention here, that is, if anyone wants to practice creative writing, needs to be a great reader. And Dr. Johnson's statement is very important here. I want to quote. He says that a man will read a library to write just one book. Maybe it's depressing for the writers, for the emerging writers, because without reading, many people want to be writers. That's dangerous. So as far as Dr. Johnson is concerned, he says that a man will read a library to write just one book. So you can understand from this particular pronouncement that how important it is to read before taking recourse to writing. So reading is actually the great master for any creative writer, for any writer. So reading makes one a better writer. The more you read, the better writer you become gradually. So creative writing is important, no doubt, and it is important because many experts say that it closes distances between us and it makes us wake up. Those who are dormant, those who have some, dormant qualities, but they remain silent, they can come up with creative writing. So it is a means to getting up, to waking up. So writers are born and made. Someone said that writers are born and writers are made. If writers are born, they are geniuses. And there are lots of examples. Shakespeare, Rabindranath Tagore, Kazi Nazrul Islam, right? Lalam. So they are, born writers. But there are also lots of writers who are made. And that's why training is important. That's why craft learning is important, I said. So it is already well established that yes, training is necessary. At the same time, the half of the skills come up from your own personal training. So I want to quote another statement by Ernest Hemingway. You know very well that if you just look for some guidelines about creative writing, you will find lots of writers giving you suggestions, guidelines, but all of them should not be trusted. Some are great. One of them is Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway has given wonderful guidelines for writers. And one of the statements I'm sharing with you that is very important. You have the sheet of blank paper, the pencil, the obligation to invent truer than things can be true. You have to take what is not palpable and make it completely palpable, and also have it seem normal, and so that it can become a part of the experience of the person who reads it. So this is something wonderful for the emerging writers, for those who want to be creative writers. So maybe in the beginning I told you that it's the blank sheet of paper that you have before you. That Ernest Hemingway also refers to that. You have a pencil, you have a blank sheet of paper, and you have also an obligation to write something. Then what would you do? You have an obligation, you feel an urge within to write something. And you have to write something that is true. So what is true, what is false? This is that is a debate. It's a huge debate about this. Laymen believe that literature is false. But those who understand literature, those who are enthusiasts of literature, know very well that there is no truer thing in the world than what literature focuses on, what poetry focuses on, right? So yes, you want to express yourself, but you are blank, but you feel an urge within. Yes, when you write, you come up with something, then yes, you have to present it before the audience. So that is how you can proceed. That is how you can, actually start. Whether it becomes palpable, whether it becomes, believable or not, that's a different thing. But you just come up with your own ideas, with your own experiences, with your own, emotions and feelings. Then, only then, if you are honest within, then ultimately your writing would be taken, granted by the, readers. Because writing can change people if it is good writing. If it is good writing, there is also debate about good writing and bad writing. I'm not going to that. But yes, it is understandable. Good writing can change people. And good writing can create new worlds and possible universes. it is a quotation I'm sharing, that good writing creates new worlds and possible universes. It is not only one universe, lots of universes can be created within the readers if they read something good. And even the world
Sir,
that is created by, yes, please.
sir, just sorry to interrupt you, but can you check the time?
Okay, it's 8:30 now.
So, because Zoom has some time limitations. That is why I am
Okay,
asking.
how long shall I continue? If you just give me some idea, then it will be better. I can continue, for about
Okay,
9.
okay,
Is
Nowrin,
it
miss.
okay?
Nowrin, please
I can't
unmute
hear
yourself
Nowrin.
first.
Miss
Please
Nowrin is
unmute.
talking. Maybe it should be unmute. Okay. So shall I continue?
Nowrin, miss, please unmute yourself.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
sir. Sir, we have 45 minutes for this 30 minutes over, so 15 minutes we have, and we have question answer session also. So I think if sir continues and we can enter again, then we will get 45 minutes. Another session we
I think
can
that
book
would
Okay,
be
in.
so
better because I'm only on the
so
half
miss,
page.
Yeah.
can you make this announcement for our participants how they can
Yeah.
get the link?
Yes. Participants, would you like to participate again for another session? That will take another 40 minutes. If you are comfortable and you are available, then you can, that session will end and we'll again enter. Is it okay with you?
Yes. Yes,
Yes?
we'd like to join.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Where is the link? Where they will get the link?
I'm just in the
Yes,
midway, so
miss.
that's why it would be better.
Yes,
I
we will
think if
join
you
Yes.
again.
continue.
Okay, so you will get the link.
Another session about.
Okay,
Yes.
so we will
Another
continue this
session
session.
about.
This same session will continue. So Sarah will be talking about, and we will again enter to this session. But you will get the link on our Facebook page. You try, and you try with the same link again. If it doesn't work, within 5 minutes we'll give you another link to our Facebook page of the Phoenix. Okay?
Okay.
Nowrin miss, would you mention
Okay.
again
Okay.
what is the another session about?
Sarah will be talking
This
about
session
this
will
creative writing. This one will continue.
Thank you.
This.
okay.
So
Sorry to interrupt.
no, it's all right, all right. So yeah, that I
Sir,
was talking
continue, sir.
about how creative writing can create possibilities, and one critic has said that Anatole France said that you become a good writer just as you become a good carpenter by planing down your sentence. It's in favor of, again, craft, because as I told you, that there are lots of arguments in favor and against creative writing, teaching, or learning. But Anatole France says that yes, there is also possibility. That is also the way how one can also be trained for creative writing. So my first part is almost done. I wanted to talk about what creative writing is. Then I am now coming down to the point, why creative writing? This is the most important part of my discussion. Why creative writing? This is the question that I have already raised in the beginning. Then I'm repeating, what's the purpose of writing? What's the necessity of writing? Why do you write? To simply enjoy, or you don't know why, or to spend time, or to publish, or you want to earn money. So lots of questions you ask yourself. Why you want to set yourself to writing? These are the very important questions. If you want to be a writer, if you want to write something, then you must ask these questions. Then look for the responses within you. There have been many great people in the world who read throughout their whole life but didn't write anything, or they have written something very little. So if you are devoted to reading, this is also a great part of your life. Reading also makes a great human being. It's not always important, or it's not always necessary to be a writer. To be a writer, we have to have a kind of mind that is prepared for that. You should not write for the sake of writing only. When you want to be a writer, then you should ask these questions. Then why you are going to write? Writing is not a plaything. It's not something that is insignificant. So it's a great mission that you want to, take up. So when it's such an important area, then you have to have the, preparation for it, mental preparation. As I quoted earlier, that psychological sturdiness, that is very important. On the other hand, many writers write lots of things, reading very little. Maybe I told you earlier about these, but there's no denying there is a huge risk in taking recourse to writing without reading avidly. It's better that you keep writing and enjoy the vocation. So try to have a passion within you when you want to be a writer, and take it as a vocation. Take it as a very, very important work in your life. Otherwise, there is no way that you should dream to become a writer. And when you just think that you should write something, then start reading. Read for years, for months, and maybe then attempt a line or two, and then a book. So through reading, first of all, taking mental preparation, try to read, and then try to think about writing something. So by writing, I quote, you can create your own personal universe. Why you writing? One of the answers, maybe this is someone else's, but you can look for your own. He says that by writing, you can create your own personal universe, in which readers are co-creator. This is wonderful, actually. You create your own universe by writing something, and yes, the readers will be your co-creator. Readers will create something else. Those who are familiar with the world of criticism know very well that a particular poem is read from different angles, from different perspectives. Even the perspectives that the poet did not think about are brought up by the readers. So that's why different universes, different worlds are created by the readers as well. So they are the co-creators in this perspective. So writers make words, readers make pictures. So you write because writing makes you feel more alive. So another response. Why writing? Why creative writing? Because you want to feel more alive. It does not mean that you are dead. But when you want to feel more alive, it means you want to live distinctively. You want to have a different world in which you want to live. And your absorption in writing sometimes turns addictive. If you plan to be a writer, try to be addictive. Try to have an addiction to something, that is reading and then writing. And you should imagine that the experience of writing is euphoric. It is a kind of feeling that is matchless. The experience of writing. If you have the honest purpose to write something, if you have an honest purpose to write, to be a creative writer, then the experience is matchless, euphoric. And why? Because you want to create something wonderful. You create wonder, you as well as others. By writing, you first of all surprise yourself. Then you surprise the readers. So the process is actually absolutely accelerating. And you create such magic and such wonder that you feel like leaping in joy, like Wordsworth. So when you create something, you write something wonderful, something magical. Ultimately, you want to feel like leaping in joy. That is the experience. That is the exhilarating experience. That's why you want to write. It is actually a therapeutic experience. Writing is a therapy to many writers, to many readers as well. They go through therapy when they just read something wonderful. And some teachers of writing believe that writing is a powerful aid to various types of therapy, from the treatment of depression to social rehabilitation. So this is another response to why writing. It is a therapeutic experience when you write. At the same time, you write something so that others go through the same kind of experience, that is therapeutic experience. More accurately, writing may contribute towards self-development and self-awareness. This is another response to the question why writing. This is self-development and self-awareness. And the words are self-defining. What does it mean self-development? What does it mean self-awareness? I don't want to focus on that. And I want to quote another very important statement by David Morley. He said that if you ever impress yourself as a writer, you are probably suffering a kind of artistic altitude sickness. This is something about being proud as a writer. This is something about being happy about your own writing. This is a kind of pause that you should think about as a writer, because you write something, then you just pride in that, yes, you have written something grandiose, something great. That kind of self-satisfaction is little found in literature. I mean, great writers have written something, and they have been bestsellers, no problem. But after some years, they have found that something worthless. Even after writing something and after publishing something, that particular piece may not please the writer, uh, like the primary situation, primary feeling that he or she had when it was published. So it changes. So that's why it's a kind of sickness if you a kind of become satisfied with your writing. But yes, it is again relative. You should love your writing. There is no doubt about it. But yes, it rarely happens that the creative writers are satisfied about their writing. So there is a way. I'm coming to that particular point when it is about process. I will talk about. So it is about process actually. That you write something, you become happy, and then you go back to your writing. Then you'll see that nothing you have done at all. So that's why momentary happiness may be there, but through the process, you have to have a lot of things to do. So that's about why writing. Lots of things are also there. You can also find uh, responses on your own that why writing. But it is best to ask yourself why writing. Never go for writing without having this question within yourself, that why writing. Right. So then, ultimately, yeah, if you ask some great writers, they will give you different responses. One of the most important responses, one of the most common reactions comes from the writers, even most of the great writers, is that they write for themselves. They write to please themselves. But yes, it is true to some extent. But there are other reasons why people come to writing. So writing for money, it is not undeniable. So there's the purposes are there, lots of purposes. So without purposes, it is a bit risky to go for writing. But again, different kinds of writings are there, right? When you want to write for publication, you have to have a kind of different set plans. But when you write only to keep it within your own desks, so there is different way that you have to approach it. So my point is that before planning to write something, ask yourself why writing. Now I'm coming down to how to proceed. That is the another segment of my talk. So shall I continue here, or I will come to this after this session?
No, sir, you can
Moderator.
continue. Before disconnecting, we can continue. Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. How to proceed? Now it is the time for taking recourse to writing. So there are different ways, lots of ways of uh, proceeding to write. And maybe I told you that if you Google that, you'll find that 10 rules for writing, or 100 rules for writing, 20 rules for writing. All of them are wonderful. At the same time, they are nothing at all. So it is the writer himself or herself who knows how to proceed. As I told you, that mental preparation you have, but yes, still there are some guidelines. There are some, pieces of advice from the great masters that you can read, but you should not blindly follow that. You have to follow yourself as a creative writer. There are feasts and famines. Some of the writers have pointed out that when uh, you want to proceed to writing, that there are the feasts and famines. There are the possibilities. At the same time, there is the zero possibility. And sometimes your words come as currents of the sea. Sometimes you get stuck for days and weeks. So you start writing. Everything is there before you. Sometimes you see that you are so inspired that you can write line after line. You can write page after page. And you are also happy about your writing. But sometimes it happens that days go by, but you cannot write a single sentence at all. That is important, being inspired. How to proceed? First of all, you have to be inspired to write. And this inspiration comes from magic. Sometimes comes from nowhere. That's why it is gifted. Writing is a gifted quality. So when it comes from nowhere, as John Keats has wonderfully pointed out, if words do not come to you as leaves to a tree, it had better not come at all. I mean, writing sometimes should come naturally, spontaneously. And there are feasts for you in nature, in the environment around you, that if you feel inspired, only then you can go forward. You can move ahead. Otherwise, you have to remain stuck. Even great writers had writer blocks. That is true. It happens sometimes to most of the writers. But you have not to be afraid of this. You have to come out of the situations where you are stuck. And when you want to proceed as a creative writer, then you have to defamiliarize the world. And what would be your writing? How would be your writing? You have to defamiliarize the world. I mean, there is also debate about this. Why should be defamiliarization? Why should be? Yeah, uh, but it is true that, and it is inarguably contested that the literary world that should be made defamiliarized. I mean, most of the great literary pieces have found this, have made this possible. And literature makes us see things afresh. You have to ensure, as a creative writer, when you are writing, you just makes your readers see things differently, afresh, something new. That's why research is necessary. That's why exploration is necessary. When you write something, think whether you are writing something very cliche, something very common. How to proceed? You have to proceed with something new. You have to try to begin with something fresh. If it is not, even for the first time in the world, at least you have to try to begin with something fresh. And here, out of many, I have found one of the critics, David Morley. He has given a kind of guideline. There are 7 processes I want to share with you. He has made it clear to the emerging writers that they can think about these 7 steps, 7 processes. I will not elaborate that, just very simply I will touch. Number 1, preparation. Already maybe I talked about it, preparation. That means mentally you have to prepare that you are going to write. You are going to be a writer. And before that you have to do lots of things. Maybe out of my discussion you have got the hint that what things you have to do, you need to do to take the preparation. So mental preparation is more important here. And but if you think that you need the training, you need to learn craft, then you have lots of possibilities. But yes, mental preparation is very important. Then second thing is planning. So you plan. So in the planning stage, You can think about what you are going to write. There are, already I mentioned that there is poetry, there is fiction, there is non-fiction. What is your area? Is it poetry you are interested in, or it is fiction? And even in the fiction area, there is a stream of short story, novel, and think about all these things. Try to plan, try to chalk out what particular area you will go with. So planning is important. Then incubation. So this incubation is actually a kind of warm up, right? You have already taken preparation, you have planned, you have explored, you have analyzed, you have done some research for becoming a writer. Then it is that incubation, just warm up, just think, analyze, try to analyze more. Though incubation is related, actually it's the part of preparation and planning, but this particular critic has made it a separate uh, thing, that incubation is another step that one has to take. Then in the fourth stage, you begin. You begin. Just try to write something. You begin something that you already planned, you have prepared, mentally prepared, and you have thought about the area, the stream, and then you're not going to begin. And that beginning should be very important, you know. But some experts say that don't think much, just write what comes from within, what comes into your mind. Just write, because there are times when you can edit, you can go back to your writing. But when you begin, just keep writing. Then the next stage is flow. You have to keep flowing. You should not stop. This is very important, because when some writers begin, on some stage they stuck up. And then keep flowing is really important here, and sometimes it becomes tough. That is why inspiration is important. That's why next point is intense here. The point is the silence reservoir. It is the moment when you have to stop, then think, then start again. So this is called silence reservoir, because silence sometimes itself is eloquence. Thinking about writing is indeed writing. So in this particular moment, you have to think more about your writing. So it does not mean you have stopped. It means you are continuing, because thinking about your writing is also the practice of writing. And finally, it is the breakthroughs and finish line. So you have come up with your finished product. So then with the finished product, you know, there are lots of scientific ways, to deal with it. To deal with it, the finished product, you can move forward. You can keep it for certain days or certain months. Then you read it, reread it, because rereading means rewriting. Editing means rewriting. Rewriting is also a kind of writing. So that's why a writing a particular piece is not an end product until and unless you feel that you have done something wonderful or you have done something magical. So that is actually the finish line. Now I am coming to the point that some logistics support, some material, some tools that you need to have for writing or for taking up the project of any kind of creative writing. So these are very important. It's long actually, but I will make it brief. So language, I'm talking about, I was talking about language, that command over literary language and poetic language. The first and foremost thing that you have to have the command over, that is literary language, because creative writing is actually about literary language. So uh, if you do not have that skill, if you do not garner that craft, ultimately dream of becoming a literary writer, a creative writer, would be hampered. And that's why you have to think about earning the craft of literary language. because language is so powerful. Language is so significant in literary writing that without it, you cannot become a good writer, or you cannot become a writer at all. Think about the great writers of the world. Read them, and you will find their distinctive uh, language in their work. So every writer is individual. Every writer wants to be individual by employing their own language. So the style, the technique they create through language is something magical. So you have to create some magic through language. So that's why it is very important that first of all, you have a good command over literary language if you want to be a creative writer. And the last thing that I mentioned is concrete rather than abstract language is always preferable for writing. Concreteness rather than abstractness in language. Yes, there is the argument about it, whether poetry should be more abstract or whether poetry would be more direct. So there is a debate about it. I'm not going to that, but actually, overall, concreteness and clarity of the language is more important and is more necessary than abstract form of language in your literary writing. Next thing is inspiration or motivation. Maybe I talked about it a little, but still I want to say something more about it. You have to be an inspired person to be a writer. You have to get inspired by a scene or by an incident, or you have to be inspired by a dream or anything that happens around you. The small details, everyday things that you encounter, that you come across in the early morning. You wake up and you see something beautiful, feel inspired. You just dream something wonderful, then feel inspired. I mean, great writers have always been inspired. Even they have been inspired by silence. Remain silent and be inspired. Try to be inspired by the sounds of birds, by the sounds of even frogs, the sounds of murmuring water, the sounds of currents. I mean, anything that you hear, anything that you see, anything you taste, you feel inspired. And only then you will be able to have an urge to write something about that. Without feeling inspired, you can never write anything. So when you feel inspired, when you see something beautiful, then try to take notes. As an emerging writer, try to carry notebooks and try to note down. Sometimes you may forget something. Sometimes you may not, come back to your memories because memories may baffle you. So that's why it is better that you carry notebooks, you note down. And inspirations, momentary inspirations are so powerful that they always urge you to write something. They always force you, push you to write something. So it is important that feel inspired and then feel confident. So feel inspired and then have confidence and then go for writing. So this is the second point, that inspiration or motivation. Next point is discover your potential. I mean, as a human being, you're powerful within. I mean, lots of potentials you have within. And even you don't know how powerful you are as a human being. Your brain and your mind can do something outstanding, extraordinary, that even you have never thought of. That's why you have to discover those potentials. You have to discover the power of doing something grandiose. You have to discover your talent. You have to discover your latent power, so that you are no more dormant. You are no more docile. You come up with your own valor, because writing needs courage. Writing needs a kind of mental setup, and that comes from your confidence through discovery of your potential. So you try to think about your capabilities, especially when you decide to write. Remember, writers sometimes create something beyond their own intelligence. So sometimes even you will be surprised that Haruki Murakami, now the most popular writer in the world. He came to writing without thinking much. But when he writes something, recently I have read his Art of Fiction in Paris Review. He says that he writes, and sometimes he writes something, and he even doesn't know that where it comes from. That's why I told you that something must come from nowhere. So that is actually the honing up of your inner world, inner realm. That is the discovery of your realm, or your power, or your capabilities. So then comes the reading, and maybe I should not repeat, but I read something that I have written about reading. Reading and writing are interdependent. Begin to write after reading numerous books. Write a line after reading thousands of lines. Read widely, read madly, read everything, good thing, bad thing, whatever. Read critically, read between the lines. Read whatever interests you. Ask yourself, what is the story? Why is the story or poem so interesting? When you are reading a poem, try to ask, why are you feeling so happy by reading this poem or that story? Why is it so interesting? Why does it feel so good reading this particular piece? Then read your own work to yourself, loud, and carry a notebook to note down important things from your reading. Writing something in your notebook every day. This is an important task as an emerging writer. And something interesting, or even something boring that you feel sometimes, reading something or looking at something, try to note down, and your feeling or whatever you do. So when you read a piece, try to note down, try to mark up what interests you. Maybe personally in my life, I read something. I'm a slow reader, only because that sometimes language actually fascinates me, and I just concentrate on the language. At the same time, some images that are created by the writer. So think about that. When something very interesting comes up, think about that. No matter, it takes time. So next thing comes up, a place, a beautiful or suitable or good place for a writer. Sometimes some writers may write anywhere. Some writers write in the mobile phone. Some writers write with pen and paper. Some writers write on the computer. So it depends upon individuals. But yes, it is the comfortability that is important. But a suitable place, and the famous line all of you know, that Virginia Woolf, in her A Room of One's Own, very wonderfully said that in order for a woman to write fiction, she must have two things, certainly, a room of her own and enough money to support herself. So it is from a different perspective, but to signify the place, this is important. I mean, a room of one's own is important for a writer. And this room means a comfortable place, a beautiful place that is inspiring, and that is so exciting for the writer. So a place is important. And then next thing comes up, a peaceful mind, the mind that is ready for reflection, a mind that helps you to think, a mind that helps you to keep silent. And sometimes you stay alone. If it is not for a longer time, then concentrate and that keep engrossed. And then convert your thoughts into images, images into thoughts, recollect memories, value your own experience, take everything that happens in your life seriously. This is about peaceful mind. When your mind is peaceful, then you can think about all these things. Some people think that yes, writers sometimes are crazy. No. So I was talking about peaceful mind, and then you have to find out the convenient time for writing. Some writers are interested about writing in the early morning, some in the evening, some in the daytime. I mean, it depends upon the individuals, which is their convenient time. Then next thing is the development of individual process or method. Next thing is the imagination. Maybe I wanted to talk about it earlier. Imagination is the hallmark of creativity. Your writing is dependent on how imaginative you are, how intense your imagination is. And imagination is more important than knowledge, in very famous statement by Einstein. And when you imagine, you try to connect sight with sound, taste with touch, time with hearing. So when you connect all the senses well, then you can write something beautiful. And then getting started, you write the first sentence. There is a myth about writing first sentence, but to me, and even to many, it is nothing. Just give a start, write something, because it can come back later. So there are lots of things about it. I'm not going to that because time is there. Finally, I'm coming to the point that be passionate about writing, be passionate about becoming a writer. And then when you come with your final product, edit, read, revise, edit, then read, and then write. And the last quality of a creative writer is that he must be humble. He must have humility. Without this, all the qualities, all the features, all the logistics about what I have talked about are nothing. Humility is the most important quality as a creative writer, as a human being in general as well. So that's why I try to practice it if you want to be a writer. And if you think about rules of writing, yes, there is both yes and no. Some people say that there are rules of writing. Some people say no, there are no rules. To me, yes, there are rules. Know them, but when you want to be a great writer, when you want to be a good writer, then try to forget the rules. Create your own rules. Because good writing comes through magic. Sometimes you don't know how it happens, but something magical is born out of your own inner realm. Good writing is never forced. It is spontaneous, because it is, again, kids. I'm finishing with putting, if poetry doesn't come as leaves to a tree, it had better not come at all. So thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for hearing.